Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome to episode 14 of my paranormal and supernatural experiences. This particular story is much more current, and I certainly hope I don't ever see these things again. And it wasn't horribly scary, but there were moments where I was slightly frightened. So I am, as I've told you, I'm a nursing assistant, and I've been taking care of people, specifically the elderly people, for a total of about 23 years. And I'm now not doing that anymore, but then there was raising my family and having a daycare and all these other things that I did, always about taking care of people because I really like to do that. So this particular lady that I was taking care of, and I did for many years. And the last couple of years of her life, I started becoming aware that there was these couple of other faces that I would see, sort of almost like a hologram over her face. And she was pretty, she had anger issues, and she was on medication for that, and she smoked and wouldn't quit, and was suffering greatly because she had COPD and just all kinds of things. I started seeing this, the last couple of years, I started seeing this face that would sort of be there sometimes, come over her usually when she was angry. And the face was pointier nose, smaller eyes. Her eyes were green, and they'd turn a bright green, and usually they were a much softer green. She's one of just a few people I've ever seen who actually had completely green eyes, but they were a very light green normally. So I started seeing this face, and it was that pointy nose, small eyes, pointy teeth thing. And that would happen when she was angry about something. So there's another addiction, anger. And she's also addicted to sugar. So I'm theorizing that these entities were attached to her for one of her, for at least one of her addictions. And since there were two different ones, there was at least two addictions that I think she was attracted them to her. So the pointy-nosed, small teeth one, I would see when she was angry, and I saw that several times. And then the last time that I saw that face was one day when I don't remember even why it happened, but I remember that she was upset with me, because a lot of times she'd want me to do things that made no sense. So it's like, no, I'm not going to go into the business that only does brakes when you just had your brakes done. And so then she would be angry with me for not walking into a store and asking them to do something that they did, but actually she wanted something else. And so one day she was angry with me, and then she was very silent in the car, and we got back to the house, and I walked around the car to help her out because she was in a wheelchair by that time, and she looked up at me, and it was as though she was in a trance. It actually, I felt a small bit of fear because I could see this pointy face, and she had this kind of trance-like look on her face, but it would morphed into this creature. And I said, why are you looking at me like that? Why are you looking at me like that? And she sort of snapped out of it and put her head down because her head was kind of back and she was looking at me. And it was almost like anger, but not, I couldn't quite tell. And she said, what? I'm not looking at you in any way. I said, oh, okay. So I got her out of the car and we went in, and that was fine. And that's the last time I saw well, that's not the last time I saw that face. The very last time was was driving to the grocery store, and she'd made a list for me, and I was going over the list, which was always what I did. And we're parked in the store lot, and I've got my hands on the steering wheel, and we're going over the list, and she's telling me that she wants me to get something that I know that the store does not have. They have not had whatever it was in a very long time. And so she says, well, I want you to get this. And I said, they don't have that anymore. Well, just check anyway. I said, I know that they don't carry that anymore. I've asked. And that made her angry. And so, or somebody angry. And so the next thing I know, my hands are outstretched on the steering wheel, my right hand, and she was only left-handed because her right side was paralyzed. So she wheeled around. I did not see her do it. I just saw her hand with her long nails come down on my right forearm. And it was sort of intense, but it did not break the skin, or I felt it for about an hour after that happened, but it didn't break the skin. I was not badly hurt. And so I turned around to look at her, still with my arms on the steering wheel, and she had morphed into this pointy-nosed, small teeth, demonic thing, and her shoulders were hunched because they'd gotten hunched from her being in a wheelchair. And so she hit me on the arm, and when I turned to look at her to my right, I'm going to say it recoiled because it was scared that I was going to hit, which was not my intention, nor would I have ever done that. And then it leaned down and kind of hunched over and kind of bounced while it kind of made this noise like that. And I'm looking at that and I'm saying to myself, oh my goodness, am I seeing that? And I know that I was because I can still see it. So I told her never to hit me, that was not a good idea, that if she'd hit a policeman like that, that would be assault. And of course she said, oh, well, that's not. I said, yeah, it really is. Anyway, so enough, went into the store. I just wanted to impress upon her the idea that she was never to hit me again. So now fast forward to the next face that I saw on this lady, and that started coming forward as her being angry with me about something, and she started making this really strange smile where her face seemed to get bigger, especially on the bottom, and there was this tight-lipped, huge mouth. And she would say in a very nice voice, oh, that's so blah, blah. But I could see that there was something else going on. It was like, uh-oh, something's going on here. So after a couple times of seeing that, I realized that when she behaved like that, she was plotting. She was trying to think of a way to get back at me, quote unquote. So she wouldn't pay me quite enough, or she just did strange things. And after a while, I was just kind of like, yeah, okay, whatever. I'm not going to be bothered by this. So this one day, I dropped her off at the hairdresser, and she said to me, oh, would you go have my car washed? And I said, yes. Well, this was a car wash where if you vacuumed the car, if you wanted the car vacuumed, you had to do it yourself. So she says to me, well, and vacuum the car. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not the car washer. And that made her really angry. So when I got back after doing my errands, whatever I was supposed to do for her, I walked in and she had that sickening sweet smile on her face with the huge mouth, tight-lipped. And then she said something to me that sounded very saccharine sweet, and I thought, uh-oh, I really made her mad. I wonder what she's going to do. So we got back to the house, and she was still angry about that situation. We went in the house, and I also did all of her pills. So she's asked me to do her pills. I say, okay. On the list, she wants me to scrub out her refrigerator, which I'm not doing. She has a housekeeper who does that. And she immediately goes to the refrigerator, opens it up to see if I've scrubbed the refrigerator out. And so she said, you didn't scrub the refrigerator. I said, Deb, I don't do that. Like, you have a housekeeper. So she slams the refrigerator door so hard that the bottom shelf, the door popped open and the bottom shelf fell out the bottom, and a bunch of stuff fell on the floor. And then rolled up to me, shaking her hand. It wasn't like up, like as though to punch me, but down low, and kind of pinned me with her wheelchair in order to intimidate me, which I wasn't, because really, truly, there was not really much she could do that could actually hurt me very much. So, and then she rolled out, and she went to her room, and then I was doing her pills, and she came back through the living room and came through the kitchen into the dining area, and she's coming up very slowly, and she has that huge mouth still. And I just looked up at her and smiled at her like it was normal, and then the face drained away, and she was fine. And then that was probably about 6 months before she passed away. But that lady had a couple of demonic attachments, and that was an interesting experience. One that I hope I don't have anymore. So that's the end of my stories about demonic attachments for this evening. I hope you enjoyed that. It's a true story. And I will please like and subscribe. And I will talk with you again tomorrow. God bless.